This is the Halo Effect, Hospitality Stories with Ashley and Michael Donald. This podcast is about people, their stories, and why these make hospitality so special. Every week we'll share insights from specialists across the industry, and whether it's just the two of us or we're joined by a guest, we'll always aim to make it valuable, engaging, and fun. Welcome to the Halo Effect. Welcome back to the Halo Effect, Hospitality Stories with Ashley and Michael Donald. Today we are delighted to be joined by Stephen Levins, Vice President International at Frontline Performance Group. Stephen leads an international team supporting more than 1,500 hotels and hospitality partners across 100 countries, helping operators improve frontline performance, guest experience, team engagement and revenue. What we're really looking forward to today is exploring the human side behind all of that. Stephen's journey started in Ireland and has evolved into a truly global hospitality career, spanning operations, leadership, incentives, technology and culture. Stephen, welcome to the Halo Effect. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Really appreciate you having me on board.
Great to have you here, Stephen. Thank you.
We'd love to get some of your earliest memories of hospitality, Stephen. This is a hospitality story podcast. So what do you remember growing up with hospitality?
I never really, thought about hospitality in a way that I do now. Going on holidays with my family, it's kind of you're just living in the moment. But I really think looking back on my earliest experience of hospitality is when I actually started working. And I at the time, again, it wasn't something where I thought I was involved in the hospitality sector, but I took a job straight out of college working in car rental. And again, when you get involved in your day-to-day operations, I think you're just feeling that it's, you're just handing out keys and getting people in cars that they can go and do what they want to do. But you're actually dealing with people that are going through moments in their life. To you, it's just a 9 to 5. But these people, maybe it's the first time they've ever visited Ireland at the time. And you're giving them a car that's going to be able to provide options to get around the country and enjoy.
Yeah.
So, and I think what I didn't appreciate at the time was people were coming off like long flights from the States or from other parts of the world, and they're tired, and you're the first person they meet.
And maybe worried about driving on the wrong side of the road and all these kind of things that they're worried about getting a car, they're worried about damaging it and having to pay insurance and all these different things, yeah?
Exactly, and they want someone to actually be there to help guide them through that experience. And I think also anyone that's ever travelled in life, we know that from the airport to an airplane to an airport to the car rental or the hotel, it's very transactional. You're told to sit down, you're told to put on your seatbelt, you're given your meal when you're given it. So the last thing they wanted to actually experience when they get there and they meet a person is the same thing. Give me your license, give me your credit card, So I didn't realize it at the time, but I was actually providing, a warm voice, someone they could talk to, give them, my knowledge of Ireland, tips and tricks of where to go and where to enjoy. Again, relieving fears over how they're going to drive on the other side of the road, etc. So I think that was the real time. Now I've realized I was actually involved in hospitality without actually realizing it at the time. But I think growing up, as natural and Irish people, I think we're very warm, welcoming, hospitable people. Mm-hmm. And I think what you're trying to do is actually just show more than it's just a job. You're trying to show your personality. You're trying to have fun with your guests, understand what they're looking to do, and then obviously adapting your services based on what they want from it, really. So a lot of it was, understanding the needs, wants, personalities of the customer, and then reacting to that to make it as best as an experience as you can, as renting a car can be, making that fun. And I say the same thing to people, when they arrive in hotels. I'm like, the check-in process probably is not seen as part of their trip, right? They probably see their experience starting when they get to their room. I'm like, make it enjoyable. Make it fun. Make it like you're the first person they've spoken to and having normal conversation. So I think, as I said, I think I didn't really think about hospitality growing up, but when I actually started working, I realized how much of an impact I could have on people who were having their moment, that way. And I didn't really think about it at the time. So it's kind of how I feel about it now.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting when you mention that, sort of with the check-in process. I mean, so often we get focused from an operator perspective. You get focused on the brand standards and making sure that you offer all these things and you do all things, and forget about the kind of making it fun and interesting and engaging. Because even for yourself as well, if you're having to just read off a script, it's really boring. But then I sort of found in those first positions that then suddenly you start getting tips and things like that, and you're like, oh well, they really appreciate this extra bit of service and this extra little bit and you realize, okay, they have, money to spend, and if you offer them extra things, they go for them, and it's always a really interesting kind of first experience when you kind of understand the people side of it, and that becomes ingrained in the way that you work. When you decided to study in hospitality as well, right, Stephen? Is that...
My actual degree was in logistics and supply chain management, which I kind of fell into in a way. I remember my first day of college speaking to my now one of my best buddies, but I said, "Do you know what logistics is?" And he said, "No, that's why I'm here." And I was like, "That's a great answer."
That's a great idea.
Exactly, yeah. So, no, my career actually started in logistics and supply chain management until I'd done my experience in college and decided it definitely wasn't something I wanted to go into. And then I done some traveling after college, where I actually got introduced to the car rental company I ended up working for, and I thought it was a great job. So I actually just got into a graduate program there, and then became so that's how I kind of started off in the hospitality industry, was through a graduate program.
So the first bit of hospitality was after that.
Exactly.
How did you apply what you had learned in university to that role? Was there kind of a natural use of those skills, or was it kind of like you were kind of working out how it all sort of worked together?
I think that's a great question. I think, like a lot of people in life that don't study very specific courses like being medicine, etc., what you end up doing often very much differs from what you studied. And unless you're really, really dedicated and focused into that. I think what it's given me, I think logistics and supply chain management allowed me to really take a bird's eye view of businesses that I work with. So I think when you're involved in day-to-day operations, sometimes it's easy to forget that you're part of a machine. And what logistics teaches you to do is look from where the customer started and where they want to end up, and everything in the middle. So it makes you very detail orientated, but it also makes you think about the impact that one thing can have on another area, and an impact on another area, and you'll end up getting back to the same thing. So I think the skills I've learned, and even during the graduate program in the car rental company I worked with, the skills I learned there have allowed me to apply a lot of the techniques I use with my own team and with my customers.
Right.
Because what I found when I moved into the hospitality space in terms of hotels was that a lot of the basic principles that are used in car rental and theme parks, which I'll go into in another section, but hospitality was a good few years behind in terms of measuring incremental impact, in terms of measuring financial performance. I think my feeling when I moved into hospitality was that upselling was a nice to have and not a need to have.
Yeah.
And I think what I've seen shift definitely in the last 9 years since I've been working with hotels is that need has gone from that point has gone from a nice to have to a need to have. The market's more competitive. I think growing your ADR is important, and ways of doing that as opposed to just focusing on your online rates. How you can get your existing team members to drive that ADR has really evolved over the last few years. So I think applying what I learned in terms of incremental revenue, statistics, KPIs, analysis, and how to do it, and applying them into the hospitality space. Like some hotel leaders, even quite senior ones, when I mentioned certain techniques, are like, "Oh, I never thought about it in that way." And it's like, well, there you go. So I think it's been an evolution over the last few years, but trying to apply the same techniques that I learned both in college, through my car rental experience, and then into the hotel world has been really interesting.
Amazing to hear, all of those transferable skills, and as you say, almost applying that to the guest journey, which, there's so many different touch points, and learning from other industries. So we kind of grew up our careers grew up with Starwood Hotels and Resorts, which was then obviously acquired by Marriott, and one of their core programs was Six Sigma, which obviously it kind of started its life within the car industry with Ford, and it was all about process improvement, and and to have that applied to in a hospitality setting, I think just really to your point around the hospitality industry sometimes being that little bit behind, and I still think there's still a lot that we can catch up with certain adoption of technology, but I thought that was so forward thinking, and this is going back like 20 years, show my age, but it was just really impressive to see, I suppose, taking those insights and experiences from other industries and looking at how you can improve those processes within a hospitality environment. So yeah, great to see that your kind of experiences from automotive into hospitality kind of have taken all of those best practices and still support your vision of today. And then looking back, Stephen, from your career and what you're doing now, were there any sort of big learnings or big, I don't know, even almost like periods where things may not have kind of gone the way you thought, but actually that led on to something else, something better? Any sort of ups and downs throughout your career that you're happy to share?
I can think of one at the moment. No, listen, I think when I moved to the UAE, it was obviously a massive change of culture. I was working with FPG for 2 years in Ireland, where it was easy street. I had a really nice account. All the team knew me. I was part of the furniture. I was coaching, training people. It was very fun. And I moved to Dubai and trying to start off again. We hadn't got a massive customer base here, learning the different cultures, which was a huge element for me. Again, I think as apart from Cork people in Ireland, I think Dubliners also think they're the centre of the world, right? So then when you move to another country, it's like, whoa, I don't know anything about the world. I don't know why certain cultures do certain things and react to this. And it was just starting from scratch again. So it was a challenge, which I loved, because I think one of the things I've been, I love people. I love talking. I can, you guys will probably know, I can talk to the wall. But I enjoy people. I enjoy learning about them, and I enjoy them, helping them learn other things as well. So whilst it was difficult, I really, really just got excited by the opportunity to kind of start with a blank canvas. I think in the hospitality world, COVID, we work with hotels. So literally overnight, we literally lost 90% of our revenue. So how we actually adapted as a company during COVID has led us to where we are today.
Right.
So again, when COVID started happening and we seen our model just collapse, because when FPG started, we were a training and consultancy firm.
Yeah.
And we used to go on site, do classroom training, and that just disappeared overnight. And not only we weren't allowed to do it, we also had hotels that just wouldn't invest in it. So we really had to look at our business and identify, right, what are the key USPs, and then really adapt our program during the 6-7 months of COVID and really adapt it to be better on the other side of it, which allowed us to deliver the same level of service without maybe physically needing to be at a hotel, which brings us into the tech element that we created. But I think they were probably the two challenges which I faced in my career. But again, when I look back at COVID, I'm an eternal optimist, but I enjoyed some of that. I enjoyed being closer to my friends and having more Zoom calls with my family than I ever would have had, the way. So I always think during any difficult scenario, something good will come out of it, because it just means you need to adapt, and so I suppose that's what I'd say.
That's a great example. Yeah, absolutely.
Stephen, can you tell me a little bit more about that move that you made to the UAE? So I did a similar thing 20 years ago when I moved to Maybole in South Ayrshire, but I from my perspective, I'd never ever thought I was emigrating at that point. I was just going for a job. Tell us a little bit about that kind of the motivation to leave, and maybe and why you haven't been back, and why you're still away. How did that feel as a proud Irishman?
It was funny actually. I've told this story to many people, but me and my wife went to South Africa on honeymoon back in 2013. I better get that right, or else she better not listen. We went on honeymoon. I'm lying to you, it was 2014. It was in the November 2014. We went to South Africa on a honeymoon, but we stopped in Dubai on the way for 4 days, and we had some friends living here, and we honestly just fell in love with the city. We got back home in December, and we kind of made a decision that we wanted to move. We were like, let's just do it. We started looking online to see if there was jobs available and what we do and stuff like that, and nothing was really there. And you have to kind of know people in this city in order to try and get opportunities. It's a difficult market. And in the January, FPG had a global conference, which we had every year in Orlando. And honestly, this is how it happened. The boss at the time said, "You were in Dubai in November." I said, "Yeah, did you like it?" I said, "Absolutely loved the place." He goes, "Listen, we're actually looking for someone to go over there and start FPG in the Middle East. Would you be interested?" And I was like, I'll have to think about it, you know.
You got to negotiate these things,
yeah, exactly. So obviously I was honestly just very fortunate, which I think every career needs. You need obviously hard work, but you need a bit of luck and timing. So yeah, I ended up then moving in the July afterwards. And honestly, it's as I said, it's just been quick. It's 11 years now, and I can't believe it's gone by so quick. I think we had 2 or 3 years where we were building the company up. We then had some solid success. Then COVID happened, that killed us for a good year, you know, a year and a half of recovery for the hospitality space here. And then since then, we acquired one of our competition, and then it was building the kind of merging of the two companies together. And honestly, it's just come together perfectly. I think living in the UAE, there's a really strong Irish influence as well. There's lots of Irish people. There's lots of Irish bars. You know, there's a GA team, you know, which obviously we're part of. So there's always lots for us to stay and do. We just love the lifestyle, to be honest with you. We do miss Ireland. We do miss, you know, being around our family and friends. But the opportunity, both personally and professionally, was too big not to take the chance.
Oh, fantastic. And it sounds like there's a lovely community there as well, a really sort of tight-knit expat community, and still have a taste of home. So a little bit more about Frontline Performance Group, Stephen, if you can just, explain a little bit about the company, where it's come from. I know obviously it's beyond hospitality as a sector as well. It'd be great just to hear a little bit more about you on what it does with the industry.
Sure, great, thank you. So FPG was started in 1993 in Orlando, Florida, still privately owned by our owner Ziad Khoury. The idea of the company at the time was to teach team members effective ways of offering an upsell in the right way. And he actually wrote a book about it. It should be more like an offer rather than a sale, right? So we were typically a training company. So when I got hired, my role was to work with car rental companies, not the ones I worked for, in order to consult and train their frontline team on how to upsell effectively. Now, in car rental, incremental revenue is about 30 to 40% of their operational revenue. It's huge.
Wow.
So it's an important part of the job. So we'd go in, we'd do classroom training, and then we'd do on-the-desk coaching to ensure that they were using the best practices that we had taught them in the classroom. What we quickly realized is that you can do training classes, but whether those best practices are implemented or not is the make or break. And we had no actual way of measuring the impact we were having with the property or the car rental company at the time. So we would do the training, but then not be able to measure from A to Z. What impact did it have? It was all very subjective. And then obviously they'd call us back and say, do more classroom training. We'd do more classroom training. They'd get a spike. It would drop off. They'd call us back. So what we decided to do was actually then create a technology called Engage. Play on words, but it's called Engage, and it syncs in with the hotel PMS or the car rental PMS, and basically extracts the data from the PMS and gives analysis on their upsell performance. That allowed us then to measure the impact. So if we did coach and train a person and they were at $5,000 a month in incremental revenue, and after the training they went to $8,000 a month, it's like, right, well, I can clearly see there's been an impact. And you can do that both on an agent, property and portfolio basis. So the system really allows you to measure performance rather than the system doesn't teach them how to do it. We still have a heavy involvement in that, but it allows you to measure where the areas of opportunity are. So that's kind of been our evolution over the last 10 years, is going from a standardized training consultancy company into more of a SaaS company, still with the professional services on top of that as well. FPG, now we work with over 3,000 hotels globally. As you mentioned in the intro, I look after in my region 1,500 hotels. We are a major partner, and a preferred partner with Marriott, with Hilton, with Hyatt, IHG, locally with the likes of Jumeirah, Emaar. We still work with car rental companies around the world. We worked with theme parks like Universal Studios, SeaWorld, some local theme parks here in Dubai. So anywhere there's a guest-facing environment where there's an interaction to buy something, we get involved in. We've just also recently released the same program for restaurants. So again, looking at revenue per check, revenue per guest, rather than obviously focusing, and again, when I speak to revenue managers regarding F&B, it's always focused on footfall. I want to get more people into my restaurants. What we're focused on is driving the revenue per guest at the restaurant. So we've really evolved from the old days of just being a training company to a software provider which tracks, measures all the KPIs in different environments, and then providing training and consulting on top of that. So that's kind of I could talk about that all day, but I think I tried to squeeze it down as much as I could.
So when you moved to Dubai, you were not only dealing with all the sort of different culture and everything, it was your real kind of first really focusing on hotels and hospitality. What was the kind of the biggest challenge within that, did you find? Because on the surface, I know hospitality can be a bit defensive and protective of their own guests, and we think we know our guests better than anyone else. How can you come in and tell us we need to... That's my initial kind of feeling in there. But please tell us what your experience was like.
I think it's a great point. I think in car rental, they're less focused on... I'm not going to say they're not focused on service, but there's a 50-50 ratio between service and revenue. And I think in hospitality, it's probably 80% service and 20% revenue. And I think that's a concern if upsells are done in the wrong way. Yeah. And I mean that in... If you think that an upsell is something you're doing to a guest, you're doing it in the wrong way. If you believe that an upsell is something you're doing for a guest, then you're doing the right way, because an upsell should be something that is benefiting the customer, not you.
It's enhancing.
It's great that you're going to get incentivized. I'm delighted for you. But your purpose for the upsell is that you're enhancing the experience of the guest. That could be a suite, it could be a late checkout, it could be a spa credit, whatever it is, but it's something that maybe they didn't know about when they made the reservation online, that all you're doing is educating them on. So there was a bit of defensiveness because people were saying, we don't want to affect our guest voice scores, etc. But if it's done in the right way, that's how we kind of alleviate those concerns. It's like, if it's done in the right way, it won't. The worst thing that can happen is a guest finding out that maybe they could have had a better experience after the fact. And then they go, well, why wasn't I offered that? Yeah. That's worse. So all we're asking you to do is inform the guest about what you have. And I think once we explain that, and again, we don't just focus purely on upsell techniques, we focus on guest interaction. So your greeting, your goodbye, the words you use, the verbiage, your body language. These are all things that make a 5-star service. And even then with, say, not so luxury hotels, we've even said you don't need a 5-star resort to give a 5-star service, right? Because it's all about the people you meet, particularly in hotels and hospitality. So I think we were able to overcome some of them. Again, it wasn't easy. I think that mentality is still out there. I'm not going to lie. If it wasn't, we'd probably have every hotel in the world on our program, and we don't. So yeah, I think there still is. There's some negativity around the extra operational requirements it's going to need, the impact it may have on customers if it is done in the wrong way, even after training. But again, the proof is in the pudding. At the end of the day, we have to try, and it depends on what the customer wants.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the way that you said in terms of that measuring and that supports that kind of feedback. I'm sure that you can then focus on different areas. And I just love the focus on the commercial value of the front desk as well as the as the kind of obviously being that kind of first in-person welcome as well. Because I think, so I come back from a sort of sales marketing PR background, and often I suppose, I would work within a commercial team, and it sort of sometimes felt that perhaps that the commercial element sits with the commercial team, whereas actually I love that you've really then created that commercial opportunity and framework for those front of house employees to feel empowered to upsell, depending on the reason of the guest trip. And you talked very early on, I think in the car rental example, about those guest personas, why they're coming. If they're in a business trip, they might just want to kind of quick check in. They might need an early breakfast because they've got to kind of head out to a meeting, or if they're there with a family, that they'll have different requirements. So I think it's just that sort of training that overlays the tech that you provide is a really holistic approach, and can certainly see why it's been so successful so far.
I certainly remember the biggest challenge sometimes when you had maybe 18, 20, 30 receptionists working was to have that one-on-one time, and we definitely had, I'm not even 100% sure if it could have been FPG, but in some hotels I used to work in, come in and actually do that training, role plays, understanding the different words and verbiage and ways you can communicate to understand that you are. I mean, what often happens is guests who are staying in the hotel, they often have money to spend, and they just need, as you say, they just want to have the choice and options and know what is available. And if there is an amazing suite at a drastically reduced price often, right? Than what they would have been having when they first booked, or when someone booked for them. I remember we had guests who someone else had booked, and they would arrive, and turned out they had won the lottery or the Euro Millions. And we ended up upselling them to the Royal Suite in the Goring Hotel for about £5,000 pounds a night, and that was like, okay, that's as easy upsells come along, but they just wanted the suite, right?
They wanted the experience.
They wanted that experience. Of course they did. They're like, well, why am I in that suite if I could have this suite? I didn't know that that it has all this history, and these people had stayed in the suite on the night before their wedding and everything else. But now that I know that, I want it, and I can afford it. So yeah.
And I think, there's statistics out there which shows that 70% of bookings made are based on price, not what they need, right? So, again, they might make that decision. So I'm going on holidays in August. I'm making a decision now in March, but by the time August comes around, something may have changed.
Yeah,
and
bonuses might have got come in, or
something. So just give me the opportunity to say no. So even like when we talk about upselling, like I tried to explain it to team members in that way. I'm like, give me the chance to turn you down. Don't just ignore me. And I had a funny scenario on one I was doing a training class actually with a hotel in the Seychelles. And my wife came with me on this one. She always came on the nice visits. She never came to the other. But I checked in, and the guy was as quick as you could do a check-in. He had me in the room in like 4 minutes, and I was like, oh, wow. But he never offered me anything, right? So obviously he didn't know who I was at the time, etc. So I turned up at the training class the next day, and the check-in agent is sitting in the classroom. I'm like, hey, how are you? What happened the night before was me and my wife went for dinner, and we were sitting around this beautiful pool, and it was lovely. Dinner was amazing. But there was a guy on the beach with a cabana and flames and a private butler and everything. And my wife just turned around and goes, why didn't you get that for me? And I was like, and my answer to my wife was, I didn't know I could. So when I went, so I went to the classroom training the next day, and we were doing some of the training, and I said to the guy, I said, why didn't you offer me the private dining experience with the cabana and the flames? And he goes, oh, I didn't think you'd. His answer was, I didn't think you'd want it. And when I asked, why didn't you think I'd want it? Blank, nothing. He hadn't really got, it was just a perception in his head.
Just a judgment.
Stephen's here to do our training, and he's just going to want a basic room, get him checked in as quick as we can. But I would have used that opportunity because, I got the room comp because I was doing the training. So I would have spent the extra few quid to make my wife happy, So, but that's a classic example of someone just looking at my booking profile, looking at my passport, maybe looking at how I was dressed, and assuming, no, he's not getting anything. He doesn't deserve it. You know what I mean? That's not fair on me.
Which, if you made all these assumptions based on how people spoke or looked or what they were wearing, you'd be potentially breaking the law. But we do these things so easily for assuming whether or not someone might be interested in something like that, and it so often it would surprise you how into it they might be.
It's the biggest blockage in any sales environment. So again, I've worked in hospitality, I've worked in car rental, I've worked in theme parks, I've worked in call centers. And the biggest blockage to successful completion, whether it's any type of sales role, to be honest with you, is pre-judgment. People are prejudged, and therefore they start to make decisions on whether they're going to offer their product or not. And that's bad customer service at the end of the day. So when you talk about customer service being the other way, don't offer them anything, that's great. No, it's actually worse when you don't offer anything at all. So there's a very fine balance.
Brilliant. Let's have a little chat about technology. We always mention AI. It comes up all the time. How has technology kind of impacted what you're doing? I think what you've said so far, a lot of the technology you use is kind of more reporting afterwards, and then there's much more of a sort of a people process for the training. But is there positives? Is there negatives? What should hospitality be cautious about?
I don't want to give you this standard spiel that you're hearing now. It's never going to replace, it's only going to enable. Listen, I do think that technology is very important. I mean, our technology, as you said, it measures and allows people to identify their areas of opportunity and allows them to grow and identify their own numbers, which is very important, So I think the increased visibility, transparency, measurement tools are so important. I would worry in hospitality to a degree because I think people still want that people. It's a people-driven industry.
Much.
people want to talk to people. I hate hotels that have this online check-in process. I don't like it. I like people. I like taking tips from the bellboys. I like taking tips from people at the desk. What's the best restaurant to go to? What's around the corner? Where can I get the bus? And again, none of these are upsell related questions that I deal with. These are just, I want to know information from someone that lives in the area, works in the area, and can help me out. So for me, the hospitality world will always and should always remain people focused. But I do believe that technology can streamline certain services. There's absolutely no doubt about it.
And the great thing about it, it won't make that judgment as well, will it? That I think often is the thing. So if you're not willing to invest and make sure that your team can do hospitality well, then maybe technology is going to help you. It's going to maybe save you that effort, but it's not going to be a better result.
No, because what we just spoke about in terms of pre-judgment, I mean, that's what AI is designed to do. It's designed to give predictions based on what it's learned, right? So if you've got 3 weeks in a row where German people haven't taken a room upsell, it's going to assume that the next German person is not going to do an upsell, and it's going to probably not give you the same recommendation. So, I mean, I think AI in terms of data analytics, revenue management, things like that, I think it's essential. And I think if you don't use it, you're going to fall behind. But when it comes to actual guest-facing environments, I think it's so important that you keep that people skill. I mean, even now in Dubai, there's a restaurant where you scan the QR code, you order your food, and you pay by the QR code, and you don't interact with anyone apart from them putting the plate on your table. I don't think that's good, because again, part of the fun of a restaurant experience is the waiter coming over and telling you that if you go for this meal, this wine will complement it. You know, have this sauce with this as a pairing. I want that information. I'm sorry, technology is not going to do that for me. It's going to turn me. It turns itself into an order taker. Whereas I consider, you know, when people come over and talk and make recommendations, they're order makers, right? They actually tell you what you should do as opposed to just giving you the option of taking what you want. So I don't know. It's a very, as I said, I think it is an enabling tool. I mean, we're even using it on our element where, when we analyze the data analytics that we get from the PMS, we have an AI insights function inside the app, which will tell a team member, hey, we've noticed this month that you've only sold rooms and no suites. Focus on suites. And by the way, John, your colleague, is the best at upselling this week. Go speak to him. So the AI is more, I mean, when you look after 1,500 hotels, you multiply that by, you know, the amount of agents in each one of them. We can't have those individual conversations on a daily basis, whereas the AI recognizes the data and provides that information quickly. So I think scenarios like that, 100% I recommend it, but it cannot replace guest-facing environments. It's in my opinion, anyway.
No, you're definitely right. Let's talk a little bit about any other advice that you would share. I mean, we have a lot of listeners who are maybe dabbling in the hospitality industry. Maybe they're using it as their first step into a career, or they're really career focused on hospitality. We also have people listening who are operating hotels and owning hotels. What kind of advice would you give to people in those situations? Generally, in terms of leadership and
I think from what I've seen in the hospitality market, I think aligning on expectations in terms of job responsibilities is really important. What we see a lot of the times, particularly in the major brands, is that enrollment and loyalty is like alarm bells. You got to make sure you're trying to enroll every guest, but there's very little accountability for other aspects. So when I go back to what I mentioned earlier about upsell being a nice to have versus a need to have, in car rental, upsell is part of your KPIs. And if you get 3 guest complaints in a month and you don't do upselling, you're in trouble, right? Whereas in hospitality, I think it's okay. If you don't do it, don't worry about it. Just try again next month. So I think from a recruitment point of view, it's aligning people on the expectations of their job role immediately. That they understand what the job entails, and that you're not just there with a smiley face to hand out keys. That the whole job is, you're the first point of contact, and you're often the face of the hotel, because the customer might not meet the GM, right? So the customer is only going to meet your front office agents and maybe some of your F&B team and potentially housekeeping. If those people are not able to interact, have fun, provide recommendations, like that's where your 5-star service comes from. And I've been to 3-star hotels where you walk down the corridor and you bump into a housekeeper and they won't say hello, they'll keep their head down. Where if you go to a 5-star luxury resort, the housekeeper will give you a head nod, smile and say welcome, you know. So I think in ensuring that your team members know what the expectations are for guest-facing environments, for KPIs, for understanding the overall goal, I think is really, really crucial. From a selfish point of view, I'd say I think one of the things people overlook is that commercial element when it comes to upselling. I don't think many people, you know, realize, and even some of our existing partners still don't, but the impact it can have on a P&L. I just recently had a customer who I spoke to last week during this situation we're having, that they're 50% occupied at the moment. Their ADR is dropping, as you can imagine, in the city. Their upsell program had an 11% impact on their RevPAR.
Wow.
11%. Wow. At a 50% occupancy, that improved their ADR by 5.5%, just by having a successful upsell program. I said, how much are you paying your revenue managers to try and get you a 5% increase on your ADR? Your front office team have done it.
Amazing.
You know, we've a restaurant in Saudi which just had an 11% increase on their revenue per check in the first month of the program. And it's like 11% with a 70% profit margin. I'm like, this is hitting your bottom line. Like, this is real money. So I think there's still a bit of I don't want to say the word ignorance, but there's still a bit of it's only a small percentage of my business. But the beauty of it is that 90% of the revenue hits your bottom line, because all you're paying out on staff incentives, particularly on front office upsells. So I think that's a crucial part of it. I think one of the things people also misunderestimate about upselling and providing incentives is retention and employee engagement. The biggest problem in the world right now for hospitality is turnover of staff. It's crazy. I mean, people are just, there's no loyalty. People are leaving for other jobs as soon as they get opportunities. People are leaving for an extra $100. A successful upsell program, which allows a team member to maybe double their salary if they're successful at it, will make them stay. You know, and that's the long-term effect of that, both from a cost perspective, from an experience perspective, from an engagement perspective. I think it's just huge, and it's very hard to quantify that. But it just creates an overall atmosphere within the hotel that, this is for you, and that increases that employee engagement, which has a knock-on effect on service. If your teams are happy and they're excited, they're gonna get better service levels as well. So I think
that's a massive point, Stephen. I love that. I've heard some people say things along the lines, to paraphrase, but it's their job. It's part of their job is to upsell. Part of their job is to do things, and if we incentivize that, then we're spending money that we don't need to. It drove me mad when I heard it myself, but it's lovely to hear other people have the hard facts beside that.
My argument back to that would be that they've obviously got all sales and marketing teams, and I'm pretty sure they're incentivized at bringing customers into book rooms. So, but that's their job. They should just do it anyway, right?
It's a Roy Keane thing, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. But if you're gonna incentivize people at a director of sales and marketing level, I'm sorry, you got to be consistent. You know, the way you got to make sure that everyone's being incentivized for bringing in additional revenue. So just saying it's part of their job is, I don't think that's an excuse at all. But I've definitely heard it before myself.
It's great to challenge that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Super. Thank you so much, Stephen. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, and I think you've really shone a light on an area of hospitality that does get under spotlighted, and the impact it can have on the guest experience and the bottom line and the employee retention, I think, is undeniable. So whether or not you have a partner like yourselves to help, or whether or not you just focus a little bit more and you try and replicate something internally, I think you can make massive differences into how your business succeeds, especially in these times where it is such a challenging environment, and there is so much amazing competition around as well. There's going to be other hotels that do it really, really well, and to get your perspective is brilliant. So thank you so much for joining us on the Halo Effect.
Absolutely.
Can I finish with one point?
Please.
Of all the successes that we've had in the market, helping portfolios, helping hotels make more money, all that nonsense, right? The most important thing that I'd say, and it will stick to me until the day I die, in my 11 years, was an agent that I met when we first moved over to the UAE. He had a 2-year-old kid that he hadn't seen in a year and a half, and his wife was pregnant. a year after working with him, he still hadn't seen the kid that his wife was pregnant on, and he hadn't seen his son in 2.5 years at this point. He said to me that he called me, which is look, I get even choked up now. He called me and said, "Stephen, guess what? I earned enough money in incentives and bonuses this year. My wife and kids are moving to Dubai."
Oh, that's lovely. That's
worth. That's more than RevPAR. It's worth more than promotions. It's worth more than a profit margin. I don't care, but you change someone's life.
Wow.
You know, and that's like, for me, that's why we do what we do. And I know it sounds a bit American cheesy, but that will stick with me for as long as I live. And that one person has had a huge impact on their life, and that's the reason we do what we do. So it's not always about the financials. Sometimes little things like that it's a game changer for everyone.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it. And great chat.
Oh, thank you.
Cheers. Thank you for listening to The Halo Effect, Hospitality Stories with Ashley and Michael Donald. We hope today's episode has offered some insights and encouragement to anyone navigating the world of hospitality or entrepreneurship. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question, want to suggest a topic, or interested in just joining us as a guest, you'll find our contact details in the show notes. Don't forget to follow, like, or subscribe to The Halo Effect on your favourite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Until next time, thank you, and we can't wait to welcome you back for more stories and inspiration.